avoid burning things on their fire, that creates a problem.
I understand that, but I just want to clarify, we are not forcing people to get rid of their indoor open fire, or the other definition is open fire.
That's true.
Thank you.
Okay.
It's important.
Just for the sake of
That's an
absolute
important
clarity,
section.
as stated previously, this does not contain those provisions that were causing concerns in 2014. There is nothing in here that would require the decommissioning of current fires or in a requirement to change at point of sale as was previously proposed.
So the point of sale one is gone.
That's right.
That has gone
yeah.
completely.
It's not in there.
So
So that's made it better in some ways.
it is not a revisiting of 2014. I think we've
Good.
had that
I think that's
reassurance
really
and
important.
people were welcoming that. Councillor Cooper, please.
Not a question. I'll wait till
Okay.
all of you finish questions.
Thank you. Councillor Simpson.
Thank you, Your Worship. I'm just asking a question around the process. So, and forgive me if I haven't got this quite correct. Let me get this right. So the Regulatory Committee have looked at the draft and they're asking for the governing body to approve the draft to go out for consultation, right? Right?
Don't ask me,
Hold
ask
on,
the
sorry.
chair.
I'll just let me
Yep.
keep
No,
going.
that's
My-
precisely what
yep.
the resolution says.
My problem with that process is in that shared governance thing, it looks as if local boards are just an extra. They are not members of the public. And I just think that,
Sorry, they're covered under B.
yes, so we were forwarding that to them, but it would have been, in my opinion, better if the local boards had input, and then once we got that input, then we sent it out to the public. Because it sounds as if we're sending the local boards and the public the same document, as if local boards are members of the public. Local boards are members of us, of Auckland Council. And I know it's just a detail, but we do this, as a former local board chair, it used to irk my board, and I'm sure other boards, when we just got treated like the public. We're part of Auckland Council, and so I think we should just try and tidy up that process so that if we are going to send something out to the public and we expect local boards to input into it, it should be done before the public.
Through the chair, so that is our practice, that we engage with and get the views of local boards informally in the early stages of policy development. In this case, when the 2014 bylaw was being looked at, we did extensive engagement with local boards at that time, and we have drawn on some of the comments and feedback from that to help inform this process. We have also attended a cluster workshop with the local boards last week in anticipation of the decision of this committee, and we'll be attending the second set of cluster board workshops next week. The intent of actually putting this provision B in there is so that this is actually formally on the local boards meetings, so that if they choose to actually formally pass a resolution, they have that opportunity to do so through that means. We will also be creating opportunities in parallel to the submissions and hearings processes for local boards to present their views directly to staff in the submissions process and to the hearings panel that is established through that as well.
So,
You got it.
so am I correct in saying that as a result of the workshops that you've had with the local boards, because we've only got, we're only elected in October, so as a result of the workshop that you've had with 50% of the local boards, knowing that you've had one and you're going to have another one, that they have potentially inputted into this or had do you see what I'm trying to say? It's just if you read that from a local board perspective, would you feel that you had a say? If you were elected in October as a local board member, how would you feel if you read B?
So just a clarification around, you've had some input from the local boards in the first round of the meeting with them, and then you'll go back and they will have a parallel but a different and special form of consultation from the broad public, is what I'm hearing you saying. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Great. Thank you. Councillor Casey.
Thanks, Mike. It still, for me, doesn't pass the litmus test, which is, I know what it's not, but I don't know what it is. And I wonder if you can tell the councillors who will be most affected by this, in terms of numbers for A2 and B3, and where. And just a little bit about your targeted consultation over it.
So through the chair, the redefinition of the urban is the one that will have the greatest variance of effect. There are 7 local boards which are identified in the report which will be greatest affected, and they are the local boards that are on the urban-rural fringe. We are intending to offer targeted workshops with those particular local boards so that they will have an opportunity to explore in greater detail the specific impacts that this would have for them.
And will you be doing something like questions and answers? Because that's the best way for people like me to get my head around what it is, as opposed to what it's not.
So we're currently in the process of drafting some frequently asked questions, which will be presented at the same time as this is made public for the special consultative procedure.
And the only thing that's not in the resolutions or in the report is the timeline for all of this.
Does it need to be? It's in here.
Oh, I can talk about that, sorry. Through the chair, it is quite a tight time frame, but we are aiming to notify on Monday the 27th. We were hoping this would go through today, and we've planned for that, but obviously if it wasn't adopted, we wouldn't have gone ahead, clearly. And then we're looking at submissions over March, aiming for hearings in late April. If at all possible, we'll be aiming to getting back to the governing body in the end of May, I think it's the 25th of May. We'd like to make June 2017 for winter if we possibly can.
Thank you. Councillor Wayne Walker,
Sure.
questions, please.
Yeah, just got a couple of questions because I don't see it in the information here, but will you be including some information around the hundreds of premature deaths we get each year from particulates and the number attributed to wood fires, which I think is about 110 a year?
Through the chair, it is not our intention that information will be circulated with the statement of proposal. There is a number of key research documents that we will be able to make available on the website, which will capture a lot of that more detailed background information, but it would be available on the website, so would require the public with interest to look at those rather than being part of the distribution that goes to the general public more widely.
I understand that. Don't you think it's important for the public to have the context, because it's the number of deaths and illnesses that are essentially driving this, and without a context around the dire situation we have in Auckland, people just won't have a handle on it, will they?
The issue of air quality in general has large impacts on the health and well-being of our community. A lot of that, as has previously been mentioned, is actually regulated through national standards and through other provisions outside of this bylaw. We do not want to give the impression that this bylaw will have a greater impact than what it will actually be able to do.
Thank you. Councillor Mike Lee.
Thank you. I'm just concerned that in Executive Summary Point 2, you remind us that the government has established national air quality standards, and it is the council's responsibility to ensure Auckland meets these standards. My question is, all the regulatory focus and weight in regard to air quality seems to be on individual homeowners and their fireplaces. I can't see any reference at all to the major or the main contributor to air pollution in Auckland, which is vehicle emission. And I wonder, in order to achieve a balanced approach, what you're doing about that, apart from individual householders.
Good question. No, well,
Well, I think the problem is, if you look at the title of the statement of proposal, it's dealing specifically with domestic fires. The question may be an important question, but it's not within the scope of this paper.
Oh, yes, it is. It's about balance and the politics of putting all the burden on individual homeowners for Auckland's air quality, and it's not right.
Well, I'm sorry, the way I read the proposal is that it relates, as it's headed, to indoor domestic fires. That's what we're discussing here. It may be that the point that you're raising, Councillor, has merit, but it needs to be raised within the context of dealing with it in a paper that's relevant to it. this is about domestic fires, and that's the specific area we're
Yes,
addressing.
but this is focused, the reason in bullet point 2 is to meet our national air quality standards, and it's a reasonable question to ask, what else are we doing apart from placing the burden all on individual citizens?
Yeah, well, I think you need to raise that in the context of a different proposal, because we're looking at something that is narrow, and I'm not...
Okay, well, you can answer the questions. I'll direct them directly to you in future.
Mr. Lee, I'm saying we are dealing with proposals that arise in a particular context. If you wish to raise that matter, which you're perfectly entitled to raise, and I'm not criticising the fact that you have concerns in that area, but it's not encompassed in this paper. We've got to keep a focus on what the paper is looking at.
If not, why not?
Well, because it's
about air
entitled
quality, is it not?
that it is a paper dealing with indoor domestic fires. Right, no other questions? Sorry, Councillor Darby.
Sorry, I thought I was on the list. Thank you, Mr Mayor. So just following up on the point that Councillor Walker raised, I think Councillor Walker raised a really important point, that we've actually got to wrap some narrative around the engagement here. If we're going out to engagement, we don't just give a link to some remote technical document and ask people to peruse 40 pages of technical information. We have been criticised for not engaging with our communities. I actually think we have an absolute responsibility to outline what the problems are. The problems in my community, Mr Mayor, have been from open fires in the old Devonport area, lots of old open fires, slowly getting renovated, and people actually moving out because they cannot live on the second story and inhale their neighbours' smoke. These are health issues, and particularly the elderly and the young are extremely vulnerable. I think we do need to say, if our numbers are correct, as Councillor Walker I think is correct,
2012 report.
110 premature deaths per annum in the Auckland urban area, or the Auckland area, that'd be two different numbers. I think that does need to be articulated. I would be quite concerned if we went out there and just consulted in a very technical, rich way. We need to speak to Aucklanders, and that is a big issue. Personally, Mr Mayor, and I'm speaking to this because it has been moved and seconded, but I don't think this goes far enough. I disagree with my colleague, Councillor Ross Clough. I don't think it is good enough to continue to have open fires in the urban area, belching stuff into the neighbourhood and killing people. That is what is occurring. There are premature deaths. So one of my questions here, we'll have a question, is I would like to understand how practical it is to identify, to ban high sulphur coal, but not coal. MFE, and on its website, encourages or discourages the use of coal per se, but we're okay with coal as long as it's not high sulphur. My question, Michael, is to the market, to all those people that sell coal, even my local scout group seems to still sell coal, how do you identify as a consumer high sulphur coal and other coal? Because I've never ever seen it on the bag that comes from my scout group, which comes directly from the coal producer.
People just want to
Is that practical? I personally would like to see a ban on coal.
Get to the coal place.
So there's a specific question there, if you can address that, if you're able to do so.
Fine coal. Fine coal.
The detail of the question that you ask is outside of my area of specialisation. We do have staff within council who specialise on air quality and pollution, and we would be able to get a response to you on that specific question. But it's
Well, Mr.
not
Mayor,
one that I
that's
would be
pretty
able to respond to right
fundamental,
now.
Because there's a suggestion to ban high sulphur coal, but not coal. So
So the question is, and well, I think I know the answer to the question is that what the first half of the inquiries to the officials were you're not moving away from what we used to do in the past. And the second half of the questioning has been, you're not going far enough. So there are two quite different approaches coming from councillors here. My understanding, I wasn't on the council at the time, was that last time this came before council, the decision was very clearly that you weren't going to touch it with a barge pole, that you were going to ban indoor fires. Some of the members here, and legitimately, say they have a quite different view to that.